For 25 years, the richest companies on earth made the same quiet bet. Someone else can write the software. Someone else can run the help desk. Someone else can touch production, as long as the invoice is cheaper. It looked like strategy. It was also an attack surface. Because the moment you hand a stranger the keys to your code base, your customer database, your admin panels, your cloud consoles, you are no longer only trusting your employees. You are trusting their laptop, their email, their subcontractor, their subcontractor's subcontractor, every night shift in a building you will never visit. And attackers figured that out long before the boardrooms did. The most famous example still hangs over American retail like a ghost. Late 2013, Target, 40 million payment cards, personal information on roughly 70 million people. A Christmas season ruined for a company that sold Christmas for a living. How did the thieves get in? Not by kicking down Target's front door. Brian Krebs reported what investigators found. The attackers stole network credentials from a third-party vendor, an HVAC contractor, Fazio Mechanical Services, a company that needed access for billing and project work. And somehow that access became a foothold into one of America's largest retailers. Legitimate access, the soft kind. The kind companies give away because training your own people is expensive and vendors are convenient. Target owned the apology. The banks owned the card reissues. The customers owned the fraud alerts. The vendor owned the open window. That is the first lesson of outsourcing's dark twin. You can outsource the work. You cannot outsource the blast radius. Home Depot learned a cousin of the same lesson. So did dozens of enterprises that never made the front page. The pattern is brutally simple. Why attack the fortress when you can attack the gardener who has a badge? Then the industry got bigger. The badges multiplied. Whole continents of labor became remote hands inside critical systems, and the risk changed shape. It was no longer just one HVAC login. It was permanent privileged access sitting inside the world's largest IT services firms. The companies hired specifically because they could reach everywhere. April 2019. Wipro, one of India's biggest outsourcing giants, a company whose business model is being inside other companies. Brian Krebs reported that Wipro's own systems had been compromised for months, not as a curiosity, as a launchpad. Security staff at customer companies traced malicious reconnaissance back to systems talking to Wipro's network. Sources told Krebs that attackers appeared to be phishing across at least a dozen Wipro clients, folder names on attacker infrastructure, labeled after customer companies. Wipro confirmed an advanced phishing campaign against employee accounts. It said it hired forensic help. It said it contacted the handful of customers those employees worked with. The attacker did not need to defeat 12 Fortune-class security teams. The attacker needed to defeat one partner those 12 already trusted. That is supply chain thinking applied to human services. Not a poisoned software update, a poisoned relationship. When your outsourcer is the hallway connecting you to the internet, a breach at the outsourcer is a breach at you, whether your logo is on the incident report or not. April 2020. Cognizant. Maze ransomware, internal systems encrypted, remote support and managed services disrupted, clients warned, indicators of compromise shared. Some customers did the only rational thing left. They cut Cognizant's access to protect themselves, which also froze projects mid-flight. Cognizant said it saw no evidence the ransomware hopped into client environments. That may be true. It may also miss the deeper point. When the company that holds the remote admin agents gets hit, your security becomes a negotiation with someone else's disaster. Later reporting and breach notices around the Cognizant incident described exposure risks for sensitive personal data, social security numbers, tax IDs, financial information, driver's licenses, passports, the ordinary catastrophic inventory of modern identity. Whether every rumor was precise matters less than the structural fact. A ransomware crew does not need to love your brand. They only need to love your vendor's VPN. Then came a newer, colder version of the same story. Not malware, not ransomware, people with badges and motives. Coinbase, Taskus, an outsourcing partner handling customer support. Between late 2024 and early 2025, reporting and company disclosures described a conspiracy in which an outsourced worker stole confidential customer data, social security numbers, bank details, the soft underbelly of identity, and sold it into criminal networks. Attackers then impersonated Coinbase staff. They socially engineered customers. They emptied wallets. Tens of thousands of people affected. Hundreds of millions of dollars in remediation and customer make-good costs, according to public estimates tied to the fallout. No zero-day poetry, no Hollywood hacking montage, just a human with access and a market for what that access can touch. That is the second lesson. Sometimes the backdoor is not code. Sometimes the backdoor is a job description, but code backdoors are real too. Police in the Netherlands arrested a web developer who built e-commerce sites for clients and left himself a way back in. A hidden doorway in the product, credentials kept after the engagement ended, usernames and passwords harvested, accounts abused, password reused turned one compromised store into email and social media takeovers. 20,000 users' credentials in play. According to reporting on the case, the clients thought they bought a website. They bought a permanent guest who never left. Security researchers who clean up after freelancers and offshore teams will tell you this pattern is not rare. Admin accounts that never get revoked, debug endpoints left live, hard-coded secrets in repositories, obfuscated scripts padded with spaces so a tired reviewer's eyes skip the last line, a quiet cron job that phones home every 10 minutes. Most of it is not even nation state. It is ordinary malice, or ordinary laziness that becomes malice the minute someone else finds it. Which brings us to the most uncomfortable truth in the whole 25-year experiment. Cheap software labor did not only move work across oceans, it moved trust across oceans. It moved the privilege to read your customers. It moved the privilege to change your authentication. It moved the privilege to push code into production on Friday night while you sleep. And for a long time, buyers measured that privilege in dollars per hour. Attackers measured it in blast radius. Think about what an outsourced engagement actually is if you strip away the marketing language. It is remote privileged access, often standing, often shared, often poorly logged into systems that contain other people's lives. Customer addresses, payment instruments, health records, source code that is the company, architecture diagrams that are a map of every weak door. When that access is honest, you get cheaper tickets closed. When that access is compromised, you get Target. When that access is malicious, you get Coinbase customers drained by someone wearing a support badge. When that access is forgotten, you get the Dutch developer who never left. 3 failure modes. Same root cause, opacity. You do not know who touched what. You do not know which laptop. You do not know which subcontract. You do not know whether the person who had admin last month still has it today. You do not know whether the code they shipped contains a gift for themselves or for someone who will buy it later. Large companies suffered these risks not because they were stupid. They suffered them because the spreadsheet won the argument for 25 years. The spreadsheet said, reduce cost. The attacker's spreadsheet said, find the cheapest, softest, most trusted path into the richest data. Those two spreadsheets were always going to collide. So what does a less suicidal model look like? If you are not interested in slogans, it starts with a refusal. Refuse black box headcount with standing production access and no meter. Refuse trust us as a security control. Refuse repositories you do not own. Refuse work you cannot see. A structure that has started to appear at the edges of the market is almost insultingly concrete. Pay per prompt. Human in the loop. Prepaid wallet. Private repository the client keeps, not because it sounds modern, because it attacks opacity. A prompt is a visible attempt to change a real code base with a real model, steered by a named human, build in the open, against money you already put down. 50 cents of mystery becomes a quarter of evidence. You can still hire talent far from your zip code. You can still use machines that write code at inhuman speed. What you stop doing is confusing access with progress. Progress is a commit you can review. Access is a loaded gun you left on a table in another country. The last 25 years taught American companies how to buy labor. The breaches taught them what they actually sold. They sold customer trust to a chain of intermediaries. They sold their own ability to answer a simple question after the alarm goes off. Who had the keys? If you cannot answer that in a sentence, you are not outsourcing. You are gambling. And the house always has better odds than the brand that has to apologize on television. So here's the thought that should keep a founder awake. More than any wage chart ever did, every outsourced admin account is a door. Every forgotten credential is a door left unlocked. Every vendor VPN is a door with a welcome mat. Every unread line of shipped code is a door you paid someone to install without reading the hinges. Backdoors are not always planted by villains in hoodies. Sometimes they are installed by procurement. Sometimes they are installed by convenience. Sometimes they are installed by a contract that ended while the access did not. For 25 years, the industry optimized for cheaper hands on the keyboard. The next era will belong to whoever optimizes for fewer silent doors. Not fewer humans, not fewer machines, fewer places where your customers' data can leave without you seeing the receipt. Because the invoice is not the cost of outsourcing, the breach is.